Thank you, Kaushik. So we begin today. Good evening, everybody. It is my proud privilege to welcome you all to Dialogic, which is Bishwabharati Young Scholars Lecture Series. Today is the inaugural lecture. May I now request our respected Upacharya to say a few words about this program. Sir.
First of all, I think the credit for beginning this series goes to Bipasha and her team, and I'm really impressed and delighted that I just talked about it very briefly to my colleagues, including Bipasha, and today we are going to start the series with a lecture by Dr. Ranjini Ramachandran of the Music Sangeet Bhavan. Now, how did it come to my mind? After having joined Bishwabharati, I found out that my colleagues, those who do wonderful work, they do not have a platform to showcase their talent, either in terms of performance or in terms of having done substantive work in texts. And the first effort happens to be one from the Department of Economics and Politics. One of our colleagues, she spoke on the day of the Constitution, the Constitution Day. And the idea clicked immediately. And since then, I asked my colleagues that let us start another series in which all my young colleagues, those who have done wonderful works, but do not have a platform to share their views, their ideas with their fellow colleagues or with those who are associated with Bishwabharati. And the moment I shared that idea with my younger colleagues, they took it up as if it is something for which they have been waiting for long. And immediately I requested again my colleague Bipasha that please take the leadership, because one needs a mentor. One needs what is called a referee to organize this kind of stuff. And I must compliment Bipasha from the core of my heart that Bipasha, despite being very busy schedule and very committed otherwise, immediately took it up, which shows that Bipasha has a very soft corner for the institution Bishwabharati and also for the effort that young scholars have already undertaken. So I must thank you, Bipasha. Onek dhanyabad. And I'm sure this particular series has a very bright future because it has been guided by a person of the stature of Bipasha. And obviously I'm there, the administration is always with you. And I'm happy that this particular series will go on simultaneously with another series that is called University Lecture Series. As you know, we started this series after I joined because I know that Bishwabharati somehow or the other remains little indifferent to what is happening elsewhere in the academia. And thanks to my colleagues all over the world, when I put forward this idea before them, they immediately agreed, and we heard very important speeches by very important scholars who are really leading scholars in their fields. And we'll keep on organizing that kind of lectures every month. That's my desire. And now it's being complemented by our own effort, that our young scholars, those who are doing some good work, and they will have a chance to speak, and also they will have a chance to share their ideas with their fellow colleagues. So I have no hesitation in appreciating the effort which you have undertaken. And I am sure, and I believe strongly, those who help themselves, God helped them. So I have no doubt, as I said, I have no hesitation in proclaiming this series a grand success. With these few words, all my support is with you, and I'm sure you are quite fortunate to have Bipasha around you. And besides Bipasha, the entire academic faculty of the institution called Vishwabharati is with you. So best of luck, and I am really looking forward to Ranjani's presentation today, because I'm sure Ranjani also performs, I guess, but she will have occasions to perform later. But today, the topic which she has chosen, forms in Hindustani music, diverse interpretations in performance, that's equally interesting. So I'm looking forward to listening to Ranjani, and I wish her best of luck, and I wish the series best of luck. And I again thank profusely my colleague, Professor Bipasha Raha. With these words, again, I thank all my colleagues, younger and also relatively older colleagues, for this kind of academic effort to make this point very firmly, that Vishwabharati academic community is not only involved in all kinds of creative academic activities, but also would like to share their ideas with the fellow colleagues all over the world, simply because it's being held in a virtual mode. Thank you very much, and God bless you. Namaskar.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your kind words. With your enthusiasm and encouragement, I'm sure we'll be able to carry on. May I now just say a few words about Dr. Ranjani Ramachandran, our first speaker today. She's a very well-known Khayal vocalist of the Gwalior and Jaipur Gharana. She's a young faculty member of Sangeet Bhavan. She has trained under eminent gurus, including Padma Shri Pandit Ullas Kashalkar and Vidushi Veena Sahasrabuddhe. She has performed in many prestigious events in platforms all over India and abroad. Her research interests include music analysis, archiving, and interdisciplinary studies. She is, I'm also happy to mention, a recipient of many awards, including the very prestigious Charles Wallace Research Grant from the UK. And she has for long been collaborating with ethnomusicologists at Durham University, UK. I don't think I need to say anything else about her. She is very accomplished, and it is with great pride that I request Ranjani to please take over from here. Ranjani, welcome.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It's indeed a very overwhelming occasion to be part of this inaugural lecture, and it's really a wonderful idea, I think, and a wonderful initiation. Respected Honorable Vice Chancellor, senior professors, distinguished colleagues, scholars, students, and friends, I would really like to thank Dr. Bipasha Raha and all other committee members for inviting me and making me a part of this first session of this lecture series. I think this is really a great initiative and an opportunity for all of us to share, explore, and learn at the same time. As you know, the topic of my discussion today is the various genres of music that are part of the repertoire of a contemporary Hindustani musician today. In order to have more focus, I will be specifically speaking about some of the vocal music forms within Hindustani music, And I think no discourse on music can be devoid of music. So I will, wherever possible, just as an illustration, I'll be singing little bit and also sharing some archival recordings. So let me share my screen. Everybody can see the screen? Yeah?
Yes, ma'am. I can see this.
Yeah. So Hindustani music is often referred to as, and is commonly referred to as, Hindustani classical music. So what is really classical about it? Is it traditional or is it dynamic? I mean, these are questions which, as musicians, as scholars, we have always thought about this. An eminent scholar musician from Maharashtra, Dr. Ashokda Ranade, explains the coinage of this word. He says, and I quote, "The word classical was employed by the British during the 18th century to describe literature and art conforming to the rules and models prescribed in the Greek and Latin traditions of antiquity. The term was also intended to differentiate classical works from others described as romantic." So in a sense, the word classical was actually specifically referring to music of a specific period with reference to Western classical music. And I think somewhere during the documentation of Indian music by Western scholars, I think this coinage of this word probably, I mean, that is probably an initiation of that, how, Hindustani music came to be known as Hindustani classical music. Ranade says that in some sense the term classical was also used to suggest that Indian music was less progressive and dynamic. And so our common usage of the word classical, I think, should be more from the perspective of a certain methodology of musical interpretation. Because I think as a practitioner and as somebody who has been with this form for a very long time, and also other fellow practitioners, we always feel that this is really a living tradition, a part of a living tradition, because I think it's a very dynamic system, because the music is also constantly changing. And I think somewhere the emphasis and the crux of this music is to create an individual voice. It becomes a medium for self expression. So that is why some of you must have heard rag, I mean, people singing ragas. There are melodic modes, but each rag, I mean, suppose I'm singing rag Yaman sometimes, but if I sing a Yaman today and then tomorrow I may sing it differently. So I think that sense of dynamism is probably one of the most important things in Hindustani music. So I just wanted to make my point clear as to why I say Hindustani music and not Hindustani classical music. However, in common parlance, I think we have stuck to Hindustani classical music. There are some scholars who also refer to as Hindustani art music. India being a India being a country of diverse languages and cultures, is also home to the existence of two very highly developed classical music systems. One is the Hindustani music in the north, as we know, and the other is Carnatic music in the southern states. Of course, in a globalized world, both these systems of music are being performed widely in many countries in the North America, I mean US, and also many countries in Europe. So there is this propagation of both these systems of music in other parts of the world as well. Both these systems at some point were part of the same stream, and that's why you do find certain similarities between Hindustani and Carnatic music. But there are considerable differences in the way these two forms are rendered. And within these systems, both Hindustani and Carnatic music are very rich in terms of genres. So Carnatic music also has a very large corpus of forms and compositions which are performed, and so is the case with Hindustani music. We are of course concentrating on forms related to Hindustani vocal music today. Now, before I get into the notion of the various forms of Hindustani music, let me also talk a little bit about this central aspect of music, which is the raga concept. At the very basic level, a rag is a set of notes and note phrases and combinations of notes. But I think it represents a very more wider idea. So Indian art music is built up on this edifice of rag, which gives the basic melodic framework, and tal, which connotes to fundamental patterns of time beats. And of course, there is this very important aspect of composition. So rag is a concept, and as we understand today, it is a result of processing the basic scale of notes to create melodic frameworks that are both foundational and generative. So what I mean by this is that you have a set of notes in a rag, and there are various combinations in which those notes can be sung, and there are also various rules and regulations which have been laid down as to formation of different ragas. You have ragas which are performed in the morning, in the evening, so there are specific ragas which are prescribed for a specific time of the day, and so on and so forth. But this basic melodic framework is foundational, and the way you make it generative is by putting your own inputs, of course after training. So I think you can have large number of interpretations of the same raga. So the rag gets concretized as a composition. There is an abstract set of notes which get concretized in the form of a composition, because the composition will have the swar and tal and also lyrics in some sense. There are two aspects which are very central to any Hindustani music performance. I'm laying down this discourse because I think in order to understand the diversity of forms in Hindustani music, it is also important to understand the basic idea which is embedded in a Hindustani music performance. So generally a performance will have a pre-composed section, and there is an improvised section also. Pre-composed, as the word suggests, connotes to an entity which pre-exists before performance. I mean, before singing or playing, there is this musical piece which has already been composed. And improvisation, on the other hand, refers to that particular musical piece which is further elaborated and further explored around the basic idea that the composition intends to convey. So I think these two aspects are always conversing with each other in a Hindustani music performance. So you have a section which is pre-composed already, but then it's what you do with that pre-composed material is what makes this music dynamic, is what makes a person's self-expression come into the fore. Now, when we talk about forms in music, there are two aspects to this. There's something called form in music and forms of music. So, form in music basically connotes to the realization of aesthetic goal to become a work of art. And form of music, on the other hand, refers to the various genres. So, one of the earliest known forms are the prabandhas. I mean, these prabandhas were actually predating the better known forms today, Drupad and Khayal. And prabandha is also a generic name for any well knit composition. Let me just okay, sorry. So, as I said, we are going to be talking about some of these major compositional forms in Hindustani music. One is the Drupad form, which is one of the oldest genres of music practiced today, and the other is Khayal. And then there are variants of these two forms. Basically, Drupad also has a form called Dhamar, and there are a number of genres which are part of the repertoire of the Khayal vocalists. Some of them I'm mentioning here, and we will be going on talking about each of these individual forms. Tarana, Khyal Numa, which is a variant of Tarana, and Chaturang, that's also somewhat similar. I mean, it's deriving out of the idea of the Tarana, so it's also a variant of Tarana. Trivat, Ashtapadi is a form that I'm going to be talking about, and Tappa. Tappa is a very interesting form which is basically categorized under semi-art music, but I don't want to make those categories of classical and light classical. So let us just have a single category of Hindustani music forms. And then of course there are forms which are variants of the Tappa, Tap Khyal, Ragmala, which is a compositional form where every line of the composition is composed in a different rag. And Sargam Geet. And there are many other compositions which I am not referring to. This is just an example of the diversity of compositions which occurs in Hindustani music. I'm going to start with a very short illustration of this idea that I just proposed, that Hindustani music performance has a pre-composed section and improvisational section. So I'm singing a composition in a particular rag Basant. Basant is basically a rag which is sung during the spring season, and this is a Khayal composition. It's I'll talk about that later in more greater detail. So let me just, this will be just a small demonstration. I want to illustrate better, because where words fail, I think music takes over. So I'm going to just be talking about sharing some music. So this composition says, Madhukar Aai Basant Ki Bahar. मधुकर आज बसंत बधाई, खिले खिले नीलम पल्लव पर आंगन में अमराई। मधुकर आज बसंत बधाई, मधुकर आज बसंत बधाई, मधुकर आज बसंत बधाई, खिले खिले नीलम पल्लव पर, खिले खिले नीलम पल्लव पर, आंगन में अमराई, आंगन में अमराई, मधुकर आज बसंत बधाई, मधुकर आज बसंत बधाई। कानन कानन उपवन उपवन, कानन कानन उपवन उपवन, खिले सुमन दल सुरभित कण कण, खिले सुमन दल सुरभित कण कण, ये कैसी मद भरी की बन, ये कैसी मद भरी की बन, पंचम तान सुहाई, मधुकर आज बसंत बधाई, मधुकर आज बसंत बधाई। मधुकर आई बसंत, मधुकर आज बसंत बधाई। मधुकर आज, मधुकर आज, मधुकर आज बसंत बधाई। So this was a composition in Rag Basant. As I said, it's a khayal composition. It's a drut khayal in Basant. And initially, I just sang the bandish with a few variations of the bandish in itself. But the bandish is already pre-composed, and there were a few ideas which was basically improvised music. So this is what happens in the rendition of all the forms of Hindustani music. So that's why I thought I will begin with this rendition. So before I start talking about Dhrupad, let me also give a sense of the syncretic and the synthesis of music that happens in Hindustani music. A musical system that has evolved on the basis of synthesis of music of many cultures and is the outcome of this assimilation, is not confined by the geopolitical borders of India, but rather the music is representative of a wider geographical area including Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nepal and Afghanistan. Within Hindustani music, as we just saw in our previous slide, there are of course different forms. the predominant forms being Dhrupad and Khayal, and many other allied forms currently part of the performance practice. In fact, Khayal has borrowed elements from forms predating Dhrupad and also has exchanges with Qawwali, a form of Sufi religious music. Several texts in the 13th to 17th centuries have references to certain ragas as Persian and also, in fact, document the Indian equivalents of these ragas, indicating musical interface during this period. A very well documented and important text of Hindustani music, the 13th century text Sangeet Ratnakar, in fact, draws a musicological similarity between Gamak and Tehrir as documented in Iranian texts. We'll move on to the first form of Hindustani music, which is still practiced. It's an ancient form, but it is still practiced today, the Dhrupad. Dhrupad is derived from the words Dhruva, which means firm, unshakable, and Pad meaning stanza. So, this form in some sense has divine associations and also connotes to certain solidity of structure and also conveys the idea of a sacred song. So, Dhrupad was initially exclusively performed in temples, and of course, when patronage of this form shifted from temples to the courts, one also finds considerable changes in the lyrical content of this form. Dhrupad was initially popular in Vaishnava temples like Vrindavan, Jagannath Puri, Bishnupur, Mathura, and was also sung by the Ashtachhap saints of the Vallabhacharya Sampradaya. The form gained prominence and was popularized by Mansingh Tomar in the 15th century. The great Tansen, Gopal and Baiju Babra were some of the legendary exponents of this form. And today, Dhrupad is one of the oldest surviving forms of Hindustani music. And some of the contemporary performers and some of the most important exponents include the Dagar brothers, and today we have Uday Bhavalkar and the Gundecha brothers and many more, and also women musicians performing this form. I'm going to share a very important documentary essay, a film by Mani Kaul, who was of course a very important filmmaker, but he was also a disciple of the Dagar brothers, and this is a film made in 1984, and it's not only sort of documenting the form, but it is also placing the form in the context of the space. So I think there is a beautiful dialogue which goes on in the entire film. I'm just playing a very short excerpt. It's of this film. The first part will be the non-precomposed part. It's called the Nom Tom Alap, which every Dhrupad performance begins with this kind of an alap, and then the composition is sung along with Pakhavaj. So I'm playing just a 2-minute excerpt from the film. Let me share the video.
da 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 साहेब तुम ही करता घट घट पूरन जल तल बरबार तुम रब तुम साहेब तुम ही रहीम तुम ही करीम तुम ही रहीम ही करीम तुम ही जगत गुरु बलिहार कहत मिया कान तेन को जगत को है बरबार तुम रब तुम साहेब तुम रब तुम रब तुम साहेब तुम रब तुम साहेब तुम
So this particular clip you heard basically the two separate clips, part of the same film. You have Zia Mohyuddin playing the Rudraveena and Zia Fariduddin, who is the vocalist. So first was an alap, Numtom alap in early morning rag, and then there was a composition in the evening rag. It's if somebody wants to see this film later on, they can just Google it. It's a wonderful introduction and a wonderful conversation about this very important Dhrupad form. Next, you already heard a khayal by me. So let me just talk about a few nuances of this form. Khayal, which is the predominant form in Hindustani music today, is variously defined as imagination, idea and thought. Khayal, the word khayal in itself means imagination, and somewhere in the word itself there is this notion of trying to reinterpret and rediscover and also finding your own expression. The khayal form emerged as a prominent form in the 18th century, though its roots actually can be traced back to as early as the 13th century. Amir Khusro, the legendary 13th century poet musician, has been credited with introducing features of Persian music within the khayal form. Later, Sultan Hussain Sharki of Jaunpur is acknowledged with popularizing the khayal form amongst Mughal rulers. But much before this, I'm talking about this even earlier than 13th century, one does find ideas in earlier forms which are still relevant in khayal performance of today. So much before this, the khayal form is traced to something called the Rupak Alapti from within the Sadharani Shaili of vocal music, a different form of music which was prevalent apparently in the 8th and 9th centuries. Sangeet Ratnakar, again, the comprehensive text of 13th century, documents phases of elaboration such as Thai Bhanjani, Pratigrahanika and Rupak Alapti, which essentially describe the rhythm-free elaboration of a rag, which gives us an idea that there are these strands of exchanges always happening with earlier forms of music in the formation of a new form. So I think instead of attributing one particular person to a form, I think it's very important to understand that forms always emerge from pre-existing either forms or ideas. And there is always a conversation between the past and the present. Hence, we notice that the Khayal has borrowed elements from forms predating Drupad, as I mentioned earlier, and also exchanges with Qawwali. In a sense, this form also has a very great scope of exploring the multifaceted personality of the rag, and somewhere because of the freedom which is attributed to this form, there are a number of very different styles of music within the Khayal form which emerged, and this happened because this notion of gharana that we talk about has basically been a lineage of hereditary musicians who were essentially trying to portray a particular feature within the khayal form, and then this particular feature and this form developed into a gharana, because they had followers of this particular feature. So that is how the gharanas came to be developed. But the notion of the gharana in itself is not something rigid. Today, in the contemporary sense, a gharana should be looked upon as representative of a distinct musical style, and that is why great artists like maybe some of you have heard of Bhimsen Joshi, who belonged to, say, the Kirana Gharana, but he would always say that a musician cannot be confined to a boundary but should always be open to ideas from all sources. So he has incorporated the tans, which is a particular form of embellishment in Hindustani music, in Khayal music, and he has got incorporated elements of patterns of tan, listening to Kesar by Kelkar of the Jaipur Atroli Gharana. So in that sense, I think a practitioner in Hindustani music is finding a way of rediscovering an individual expression. So you will always find that the students, the disciples of the same guru can have different styles, but adhering to a basic structure, obviously. So I think individual musicianship and creativity of practitioners of a gharana in succeeding generations has added fresh dimensions to an already established musical style or gaiki, resulting in refinement and enrichment of the khayal form in general. And that is why when I say that it is a living tradition, it's true, because one does see so many diversity of styles within this one single genre. I'm not going to play a khayal composition because I've already given a small demonstration. What I sang earlier was a Drut Khyal. So within the Khyal form, you have a slow Khyal which is called Vilambit Khyal, and Drut Khyal which is a faster Khyal. And there can be Khyals of varied tempo, of varied layers, and they are composed in a very large variety of ragas and talas. If you look at this image, I just want you to notice that this is a very beautiful image from an 18th century Ragmala painting, which is sort of hypothetically placing musicians of different periods. There's Tansen here of the 16th century, and this is Feroz Khan and Niamat Khan, Sadarang and Adarang, who were some of the earliest composers of Khayal compositions. They were Drupad practitioners, but they were one of the earliest composers of Khayal practitioners, and they were court musicians of Muhammad Shah Rangile in the 18th century. Now, within the Khayal form, I mean, as part of the repertoire of Khayal vocalists, there are these wide array of compositions which that one performs, and one of the most popular compositional form is the tarana. Tarana is essentially a composition which has sound syllables like dir, tana, tom, tana, nom, yala, yali. So seemingly meaningless sound clusters, but this form actually also borrows sound syllables from the language of instrumental music. There are many theories to the emergence of this form. Actually, the use of meaningless syllables, which had somewhat devotional connotations, had a long tradition. One of them is attributed, one of the theories, the emergence of the Tarana form is attributed to the great poet musician Amir Khusro, who apparently combined Farsi Rubai, a poetic form of couplets, and words like dir to structure a song type. And in ancient definition of a composition, where we saw that every composition has these main aspects of swar and tal and pad. Pad is lyrics and tal connotes to rhythmic structure, and swar is of course melodic, the melodic part, the melodic notes. There are also some other very important aspects, three other aspects, which is the swar, pad, tal are three, and then tenak and patakshara and biruda. So all these actually in some way connote to have religious and devotional connotations. So in some sense, many people also say that the syllables in Tarana are actually referring to having religious connotations. A form predating Drupad, Prabandh, included compositional types like the Kaivad Prabandh and Chaturanga Prabandh, all of which are sort of structurally similar to the present day Tarana and its many other variants today, like the Trivat and Chaturanga. So, this basically again reiterates the idea that some of the earlier forms just get reinterpreted in the modern era. So there were compositional forms even predating before Drupad, called Chaturang and Kaivad Prabandh, which and as part of the repertoire of Khayal vocalists, we also sing compositional forms like Chaturang and Trivat today, which are structurally very similar to those earlier forms. Tarana itself, as a composition, the way it's sung, it has a very great structural similarity to a khayal. Khayal composition usually has two sections, sthai and antara, and similarly a tarana also has a sthai and antara. Let me just demonstrate one tarana and then I'll play one Farmaishi Tarana. It's another form of Tarana. I'll be playing a clip of an artist. So I'll first sing Tarana in Rag Multani. Multani is an afternoon rag, very apt for this time of the day. So I'm just briefly singing the composition. Tan dere na dim tom tan dere na dim tom tan dere na dim tom tadar dani tan dere na dim tom tan dere na dim tom tan dere na dim tom tadar dani tan dere na dim tom tan dere na dim tom na dere 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 tum dere 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 ta na dere na na dere 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 tum dere 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 ta na dere na nag dere gede tag dere gede tum dere gede tag da kranda 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 ta na dere na dim tom ta na dere na dim tom tan 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 dere na tan dere na tan dere na dim tom dere na. So, this was Tarana in Rag Multani. I'll just play a sound clip of Pandit Ulhas Kashalkar, who was one of the most important Khayal vocalists of today. He sings this Tarana, and if you notice that there are, like I said, a Tarana has two sections, Thai and Antra, and the second section has Persian text and in the Antra, and this is a form which was popularized by the great vocalist Amir Khan Sahib. And this particular Tarana, which has this Persian text, is called a Farmaishi Tarana. Let's share the clip.
यश्मेव कुन्दर्याय आस्तेव आदर्भगल्धिं तदिन्दे तनदन आदिं तदिन्दे तनदन
So this was a tarana by Pandit Ulhas Kashalkar in Rag Alhaiya Bilawal, in a morning rag. Here also you would have noticed that after singing the form, there were certain improvisational techniques which are used. This fast passage of movement of notes is called tan, and which is used to elaborate the composition further. Our next compositional form that I am going to talk is not very commonly sung as part of the repertoire of a Khayal vocalist, but nevertheless it is interesting that such a song type is sort of has become a part of the Khayal vocalist repertoire, which is the Ashtapadi. It is, as the name suggests, it's a composition of 8 stanzas, and the repertoire of Khayal musicians includes this very unique form called Ashtapadi, rendered in much the same way as the Khayal. So all these, because they are variants within the Khayal form, the format is very similar of rendering, but there are certain structural differences in each of the forms. The Ashtapadi became a part of the Khayal musicians' repertoire in the 19th century when Vasudev Bua Joshi, belonging to the Gwalior Gharana, who was a disciple of Hassu Khan, one of the founders of the Gwalior Gharana, revived the Ashtapadi by composing in a specific rag and tal. The text is essentially from the 12th century poet composer Jayadev's Sanskrit poetry that was essentially written for the dance drama Geet Govind and deals with the love relationship of Radha and Krishna. A curious thing is the important place accorded to Radha in this poetry, which is appreciable. The contemporary form performed today does not necessarily have all the 8 sections of the song. So I'm going to sing that as well, and then we'll go on to the next form. So this Ashtapadi, which I learned from my guru, Ulhas ji, is set to Rag Bahar. Bahar again is a seasonal rag, so to say. It's mostly performed during the spring season, Basant and Bahar. The composition is in Sanskrit, set to the tala of 16 beats, 3 tan. प्रिय चारुशीले राधे, प्रिय चारुशीले राधे, प्रिय चारुशीले राधे, प्रिय चारुशीले राधे, प्रिय चारुशीले राधे. चारुशीले मोक्ष महिमा रमणी लालम चारुशीले राधे चारुशीले राधे सपति मदनालनु दहति मम मानसं देहि मुख कमल मधु पानं प्रिय चारुशीले राधे वदसि यदि किञ्चिदपि दन्तरुचिकौमुदे हरति दरति विरमति घोरं स्फुरदरसि धवि तव वदन चन्द्रमा रोचयति लोचन चकोरम् प्रिय चारुशीले राधे प्रिय चारुशीले राधे प्रिय चारुशीले राधे. As a form, this again is not, because this is a very textually and lyrically, there are a lot of words, so text heavy compositional form, so it's not generally elaborated too much, but even if there is elaboration, it's in the same mode of the khayal. Our concluding form that I'm going to be taking up is again a very interesting form called tappa, which is a compositional form inspired from folk songs of the camel drivers of the Punjab and Sindh region. Ghulam Nabi, who was a musician in the court of Nawab Asaf Uddaula of Awadh, is credited with creating this song type incorporating ideas from the folk songs. The text of this song is generally in Pashto or Punjabi, and the talas which are in which these compositions are set to are usually the Punjabi theka, and there's a tal called sitar khani, it's also called adha. Usually the tappa is categorized under the semi-art classical music forms, which also include the thumri and dadra forms. So a tappa is generally composed in ragas like Desh, Kafi, Khamaj, Tilang. Now all these ragas, in the beginning I'd said that the rag is there are like there's a huge corpus of and a variety of ragas that we have, and some of these, so you have rag which are very very conducive to expansive elaboration, and there are some ragas which are very conducive to romantic forms of music. So essentially ragas like Desh and Kafi and Pilu are all some of the ragas in which tappa is composed in. On your screen you see Girija Devi, who was a very important exponent of the Thumri, and she belongs to the Banaras Gharana of Khayal, but of course she was a very well known Thumri exponent. Thumri, Dadra, Kajri, Chaiti, these are essentially forms which have been derived from folk music songs, folk music forms. So Girija Devi was also an exponent of the tappa, and we will in the end listen to a Bhairavi tappa in Rag Bhairavi by one of the contemporary exponents of this form, Malini Rajurkar. I will also demonstrate one tappa that I have learned. And one thing that I wanted to point out about all these forms is that it is curious how the name of the form and the structure of the form, there is some kind of a structure similarity between the two. Like I said, khayal, which means imagination, and that's how we saw that in a form which gives a lot of scope for self-expression. Similarly, tappa, which means essentially it means to jump. And very true to the name itself, this form has these lot of jerky and swift melodic movements, and also rhythmic movements employing embellishments like khatka, murki, along with many other rhythmic accents. The song text in itself includes a narrative of love, longing, and separation, and the lyrics are somewhat intricately woven with the melodic line. Let me just demonstrate a very short rendition of a tappa in Rag Khamaj. चाल पहचानी में आवे तो तेज नदारत जाने मिया हावे तो चाल पहचानी सुन पाया नादान तेरा दुश्मन हो तमाम, अरे तेरा दुश्मन हो तमाम, अरे तेरा दुश्मन हो तमाम, जालम से लगी मैं अपना तो हुआ काम तमाम, काम तमाम, काम तमाम, चाल पहचानी में आवे तो तेज नदारत जाने मिया हावे तो चाल पहचानी. So this was a short demonstration of tappa. I will conclude with a tappa in Rag Bhairavi by Malini Rajurkar.
अरे बाग बिछा के बुलबुल बुलबुल चोर फिरे बाग में छाके बुलबुल आजा नजर दी बहार मिया 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 फूल से बंदी कुमर ले मिया नजर देवा
এই কারণে সঙ্গীত ভবনে ভদ্রমহিলা বলছে তো তার গাইবে
No discourse on Hindustani music can end without mentioning the contribution of the women performers like Gauhar Jaan, Janki Bai, Rasool Bai, who belong to the Kotsi community and
Chitralekha Maiti, could you please mute yourself? Thank you so much.
Ranjani has gone silent.
Ranjani, unmute yourself. You are showing mute.
Okay, no,
No, you are audible now. Ranjani.
It's now okay. It's now okay.
yeah, I don't know what happened. I was not muted, yeah. I was just saying that no discourse on Hindustani music can end without mentioning the names of the contribution of some of outstanding women performers like Gauhar Jaan, Janki Bai, Rasool Bai, who belonged to the courtesan community. They were in some sense pioneers as some of the earliest recorded gramophone artists, much before their male counterparts. And the reason why I'm mentioning is because the time when they recorded, they were actually singing multiple genres of music, ranging from Dhrupad, Khayal, Thumri, Dadra, and in some way popularized and contributed to the popularization of these forms to the new generations of performers and listeners. Thank you.
Thank you, Ranjani, for this brilliant presentation, lecture demonstration. Thank you so much. All kinds of good words have been pouring in. Everybody likes your presentation. They have been enlightened and illuminated. I would now ask people to sort of put in their questions onto the chat box so that I can sort of ask them. So the first question that has come in slightly long is from Ananya Dattagupta. Thank you, Ranjani, for that absorbing lecture. I'm intrigued by the varying interaction and unfolding relationship between the language of notes and the language of words across the four forms, Dhrupad, Khyal, Thumri, and Tarana. One would think that the bandish in Khyal functions more as an anchor rather than as pivot, which is why probably less effort has gone into writing new bandishes. We are given to understand that words are not important except as an aid to the musical evocation of the mood of the raga. However, I've always been struck by the contradiction presented by the Ragmala paintings, which concretize the abstract language of the ragas by giving them mythic flesh and blood, as it were. To me, the fact that the bandishes have not been changed or replaced because the narrative of the descriptive framework captured by the lyrics in the bandish are fundamental to the meaning-making function, even more so, I suppose, in the Thumri. What would you say about the quality of the received bandishes? So that's the question from Ananya Dattagupta. So, Ranjani, would you like to address them as one by one, or should I give you all the questions and then you can We can choose.
Yeah, I can address one by one, or it can be maybe multiple similar sounding questions can be clubbed together, maybe.
There are two more questions apart from this. So there's one more from Ananya Dattagupta. I was wondering also if it would be interesting to compare the functionality of the Hindustani bandishes and the verses by Tyagaraja and others so central to Carnatic classical vocal presentation. And one from Bhaskar Das. Ranjini, it is really enlightening lecture. Thank you so much. I have two queries. One, as we know, Dhamar is a 14-beat tal. Then what is the difference between Dhamar and Dhrupad? Is it just a subclass? And two, another form of Hindustani classical you have mentioned is Sargam Geet, which is new to us. Please give some inputs on it. So these are the three questions that have been given to you. So
Dave, if you
feel
allow
free
me,
to sort of,
I have got some work. I would like to continue being with you, but given my work pressure, I need to say goodbye to you. But before I say goodbye, I would like to, make one or two points, not questions, but just to express how, satisfied I am today by listening to Ranjini's presentation. I am literally an illiterate insofar as music grammar is concerned. But after having listened to Ranjini very carefully as a devoted student, I am now benefited. So thanks, Ranjini, for having enlightened me on an area in which I have interest, but somehow I didn't get a good teacher like you. So thank you very much, Ranjini. That's one. And secondly, it's an excellent kind of presentation. And I have, as I said at the beginning, I have no doubt this particular series will take off. In fact, now I'm getting worried that probably University Lecture Series, people will not join University Lecture Series simply because you have made the start so interesting. So I am worried because I may not get enough listener or enough participants in the other lecture series that we are conducting by the senior scholars. But anyway, that's a kind of very good comment on the excellent, achievement, contribution of our relatively younger scholars of these great institutions founded by Tagore in the early part of the 20th century. It's excellent, it's scintillating, it's mind-boggling, it's out of the art kind of performance, Ranjini. And I think I'm now, I envy Vipasha. I wish I had the role of being the mentor of this lecture series, because the credit ultimately will go to Vipasha for having, brought together such an excellent, enthusiastic, excellent, and very committed kind of scholars that we have at Vishwabharati. Somehow or the other, they don't come out in the open. In this kind of platform, I'm sure more and more interesting lectures, presentations, will be able to listen to. So Ranjini, my best wishes, and God bless you, and
Thank
please
you.
keep it up. And also my heartfelt gratitude to the organizer, including Vipasha, for having made this finally functional. And finally, on this day, on this occasion, after the Shanti, is a very auspicious day for us. Please mute your mic, please.
Dr. Povitra Kumar, could you please mute yourself, please?
On this auspicious day after Makar Sankranti, we have taken a new path in which our young scholars will have occasions to present and share their views with all our colleagues. And I'm very, very happy to have spent so much time. I wish it continued. And I just request Ranjini that your blending of lecture and performance went so well that even an unpad like me couldn't even leave the seat. So thank you very much, Ranjini. Only thing, I just have a kind of little curiosity, because if you look at Greek history and also Tagore's presentation, Tagore's critical texts, both even Aristotle, Plato, and Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore, they insisted that music should be part of the curriculum. And I think, the music has a very critical social role to play. Yeah, and I think in today's context, when we do survive not for the sake of being, alive, but for the sake of, showing our talent to the others at the cost of others. So I think Ranjini, music has a very critical social role to play. And I think we need more Ranjinis, to come forward and teach us that instead of being involved in, butchery with one another, against your fellow colleagues, let's be together and listen to fantastic performance by Ranjini. And secondly, I think I have a request to you, Ranjini. You must have seen Bharat Tirtha. I mean, the day we had Beguni
Yeah.
and Puri yesterday. I
Yeah.
mean, that particular place has a small stage. And the idea of having that stage is just to, have performances. It's a kind of informal performances where, our colleagues and anybody from outside can perform and enthrall those who participate. So my request to you, whenever it's convenient for you, please give a performance, a very brief, short performance in Bharat Tirtha's Manch. In fact, I have also thought of a name of that Manch, which I'll announce in the next day's performance. And I'm sure if we start that kind of tradition in that Manch, and also this kind of, lecture series, probably Vishwabharati will become Vishwabharati in the real sense of the term. Thank you very much and God bless.
Thank you.
मेरे को
Thank you.
इजाजत दो. I have got to go because I've got some other work to do. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Best of luck. Best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
for
you,
the
sir, for your
words.
kind words. So, Ranjini, would you like to answer the respond to the two questions by Anuna and Bhaskar Das and Jyoti Ratan
Yeah.
Ghosh?
Shudipta, I'm Charunishika and I have posted those questions as I am in the computer center. So I think I am using someone else Zoom. So
Okay, so
that's what you are saying.
Bhaskar Das and Jyoti Ratan Ghosh are basically masquerading, or rather, Charunishika is masquerading as Bhaskar Das and Jyoti Ratan Ghosh. You have been caught. Right. So that question is from Charunishika. So feel free to respond, Ranjini.
So Ananya's question was about why there are not words. No, what? What was the question? What was the question? Oh, why are the contemporary bandishes, the lyrics are not changing, right? That was the question.
Yes, quality of the received bandishes, yes.
Okay, so see, as far as corpus of the bandish is concerned, I think today there are a lot of, I mean, it's not that Sadarang Adarang composed bandishes in the 18th century, so like that's like more than 200 years back. So, but, and we still sing that, that's true, but then there are a large, there's a large corpus of performing musicians, who are who are very well-known performers who have contributed in the composition process. As far as the lyrical content is concerned, there are two theories to it. It's not entirely true that the lyrics are not important, because in some sense you are there are people, I mean, many musicians who think that if you understand the lyrics and sing, I think it adds a better value to the overall presentation. But in terms of composing on more contemporary issues, maybe there is room for that in Khayal. Whether Khayal should deal with all the contemporary issues or not, that I think there is enough freedom. Nobody has said no to that. But there is a tradition. I would say there is a tradition of many composers, like my own gurus, Veena Sahasrabuddhe, Kashinath Bodas, and there's Ashwini Bide Deshpande, who is a very well-known performer. She composes, she has composed many compositions. So new compositions are being composed, and there is in my own, as a contemporary of me, my friend in Pune. He's a composer and he's a harmonium player. So it's not that there are not new compositions are not being composed anymore, but yeah, maybe there is a need for maybe more direct engagement with contemporary issues in today's khayal bandishes. I would agree with that. Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Ranjini. There's one more question from her, like, your
Yeah.
reaction to Tyagaraja and others, so central to Carnatic classical vocal presentation.
Yeah. No, but what was the comparison? Tyagaraja is a very important composer of.
This is regarding the functionality of the Hindustani bandishes.
No, I did not get the question. So if can
I'll read it out to you. I was wondering also if it would be interesting to compare the functionality of the Hindustani bandishes and the verses by Tyagaraja and others, so it's central to the Carnatic classical vocal presentation.
Most of Tyagaraja Swami bandishes are they have a very heavy devotional angle. The lyrics are mostly very they're either describing some god or goddesses, so mostly it's religious. So I don't know where how to compare. I mean, I maybe can Ananya clarify if she can say, I mean, is that possible just as a discourse? Then maybe I can.
Yeah, with the chair's permission.
Yeah.
Am I audible? The reason why I, in the first place, wanted to put this question to you directly rather than type it out, at length in the chat box. So, when I, of the little Carnatic classical vocal presentations that I've listened to, I think there's a very strong, lyrical component there. Words keep, in a way that bandishes are probably not used in the Hindustani classical vocal presentations. So I was wondering if the difference is largely to be attributed to the relatively more, shall we say, relatively more superior quality of the Carnatic poetic compositions, or some other reason. That was really the crux of the comparison I was asking you to make. Yeah.
Okay. I would not call it superior, but it is a more text heavy form. I mean, Carnatic music compositions are longer, they're like longer sections, whereas Khayal has completely truncated that part. I mean, it has truncated into, like, even Drupad has Thai, Antara, Sanchari, Abho. So as in composition, Drupad is longer, and Khayal has basically truncated into two parts. So I think that's why lyrics are much like obviously lesser than in a Carnatic composition, but otherwise I mean, this is the only thing that I can think of. But this doesn't mean, I mean, I'm talking about Carnatic music now. A lot of people think that Carnatic music is only about singing composition, but they have this other aspect of improvisation is also equally important, and equally it is sort of performed. And the thing is, the format of both Hindustani and Carnatic concerts are different. If you look at the format, then you'll find many more compositions that they just sing. I mean, they'll just sing a song after song, and then there'll be some compositions where there'll be some kind of a extempore improvisation.
Right.
But otherwise, yeah. So, whereas, yes, Hindustani, we do, it is true, we do have much lesser time that we devote to, especially Khayal, that we devote to the bandish. But then the function of the bandish is also more than, to do with the text. I think bandish, the melodic composition of the bandish, right? The structure is also in some way used as a raw material to elaborate that particular bandish. That is why we can have a set of 15 to 20 bandishes in a single rag, and each of these compositions are actually sort of exploring different facets of the same rag. So that way the bandish function becomes important, I think. The bandish is not only for the text part, but it is also the other functions of the bandish which are used as part of the rendition, and then it becomes very important. Because otherwise you can just learn one or two bandishes in every rag and then go on and sing. But then I really feel, I think it's also from experience, that if you know many bandishes in a single rag, you're able to understand and explore the different angles of the rag. That's what I feel. So,
Yes.
yeah.
And what about the quality of the language in these bandishes? I mean, do you see it as a paradox that we call it the classical form, and yet the kind of language that goes into the bandishes traditionally is kind of colloquial. It comes from common parlance.
Yeah.
Sometimes it borders on the dialect.
Yes.
The kind of the bandishes that we listen to or learn the smattering of in our childhood. So they could be in Maithili or similar quote unquote dialect languages. I don't use that word pejoratively, but this is supposed to be the classical elite form, the aristocratic form, Khayal, or particularly the Dhrupad. So I see that as a very interesting in-betweenness in Hindustani classical music.
Yes, but that's why I in the beginning said there is a problem with which many people have with this term classical. The reason why, and because then if you say classical, then you're referring to a particular period of time, and then one of the reasons why Khayal became popular was because it was addressing the emotional content and feelings of the common man, and it was being composed in language which was familiar to the common man. So that's why some of these forms, if you see the development of the forms, prabandh was essentially in Sanskrit, and most prabandh compositions were in Sanskrit, and then Dhrupad came to be essentially a temple form, and then it went to the darbars, and you can see a shift in how the lyrics are also changing according to the form. So that whole thing of classical then becomes redundant. It's more like you have to use other words to address the system. That's what I think.
Right. Yes, I get it. Thank you so much for the trouble you took to answer my question at length.
No, it's always.
Thank you, Anuna. Thank you, Ranjani. If you could move on to Sharonishika's question. I have two questions. One, as we know, Dhamar is a 14-beat tal. Then what is the difference between Dhamar and Dhrupad? Is it just a subclass? And she adds a second question. Another form of Hindustani classical you have mentioned is Sargam Geet, which is new to us. Please give some inputs on it.
Yeah. So I'll answer the second part first. Sargam Geet is a composition which involves the notes of the rag. Essentially there are no lyrics, so it is based on any rag. In any rag you can compose Sargam Geets, and these compositions are essentially used as a pedagogic tool. So you have these certain basic ragas compositions which are taught to beginners just to get to know the rag better.
Well. Okay, so actually that's Saregama Pa, Sarega, Regama.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
all sort of
Yeah, pa
combinations.
ma re sa ga ma dha pa ma re sa. So this is Sargam Geet in Bhairavi.
It's
Basically, if you learn that, you
yeah.
have you can familiarize yourself with
Yes.
the notes of the rag. Dhamar is a sub form of the Dhrupad tradition, and lyrically it is different. It is describing the holy festival, and the lyrics are mainly connected to that. And it's like, you know, in Khayal we have a Bada Khayal and a Chota Khayal.
Okay, yes.
So it is in somewhat you can, it's not the same thing, not the same comparison, but then Drupad is like the bigger form and Dhamar is like the lighter version of that. But it's a very delightful form. And then there is a lot of laikari as a part of the improvisation of the Dhamar.
So, I mean, I was just wondering that there is no such specification of tala while performing dhamar, because as I have already
Dhamar
mentioned.
is performed in Dhamar Tal. So
Okay,
the-
so it is
Yeah.
this is one of the characters as well.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Ranjini. The next question comes from Shubhashi Chakraborty. Thank you so much, Ranjini Di, for an excellent presentation. Can you please throw some light about the relationship between Ragmala painting and the Ragmala musical genre you mentioned?
Oh, there is no correlation between the two. I mean, Ragmala paintings are essentially older paintings which were in ragas were depicted as a visual representation of the ragas. But Ragmala as such is as a compositional form, where every line of every line of the composition is composed in a different rag. So that's so that way there is no. And rag mala, it's like the name is, it's a mala of different ragas. So that's how you get the name rag mala. It's basically a compositional form where every single line is composed in a different rag.
Thank you, Ranjini. The next one comes from Professor Shondip Boshu Sharbadikari. Very good, excellent, and absorbing presentation. Could you highlight briefly the basic fundamental differences between the various gharanas? Thank you so much.
That will require one more lecture, different one. But fundamental differences within the Khayal Gharanas, you mean, I suppose. So the Gwalior and Agra Gharanas were initially, there are a lot of similarities between the two. Hello, what happened? Okay. So the Gwalior and Agra, Gwalior was the oldest Khayal, is considered as the oldest Khayal Gharana, and there is a lot of, I mean, each of these Gharanas have similarities and there are certain stylistic differences. So I think that will require a bit more elaborate discussion. I don't know whether I would be able to give.
Yes, Ranjini. Yes, Ranjini.
But I'll be happy
Hello.
to discuss with you sometime later.
Could you listen to me, Ranjini?
Yes.
Ranjini, could you listen to me?
Yes.
Could you listen to me,
Yes, I can hear you.
Ranjini?
I can hear you.
Yes. No. I know that it requires a full-length discussion, another
Yeah.
presentation.
Yeah.
But since you are from the Ullas Kosalkar's Gharana,
Mm-hmm.
so your direct guru is Ustad Ullas Kosalkar.
Yeah.
So what I just would like to know
Mm-hmm.
that what are the basic fundamentals difference between say Ullasji Gharanas and Mayar Gharanas? Just 2, 3, 4 instances.
Okay.
What are the difference between the Patiala Gharana and the Agra Gharana?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
in your class, when you are delivering a lecture on the various Gharanas, then I think that you should highlight the basic major points.
Yeah, we do that, but okay. One there's
The question
Ullas.
is, but the question is, this is right now, this is not possible for you to deliberate on in detail. But my simple question is from you that what are the basic
Basic difference.
absolutely basic fundamentals?
Okay. So at a very basic level, if you say Kirana Gharana, there is a very, the khayals in Kirana Gharana are much slower pace. So there is a lot of attention which is given in the way a khayal in Kirana Gharana, a rag is elaborated is to keep each note of the rag as the central theme and elaborate according to the note by note elaboration. Whereas in Gwalior Gharana, the elaboration is usually through phrases, and the bandishes, the compositions which are sung, the Vilambit Khyals also, are relatively faster in Gwalior and Agra both. Now Agra also has a lot of emphasis on Laikari. So does Gwalior. So see, there are a lot of features which are sort of spilling over each other in each of the gharanas, but there are some emphasis points like the ones that I just mentioned. Now Ulhasji, you mentioned his name, his own guru, Pandit Gajanan Bua Joshi, was actually trained in 3 different gharanas. Gajanan Bua's father was from the Gwalior Gharana, so he had learnt in the traditional Gwalior Gharana, and then he also trained in Jaipur Atroli Gharana, the Gharana to which Kishoriya Monkar belongs to. Now that Gharana, you'll find that there are some, each of the Gharanas also specialize in specific ragas. So like we say the Bihagda or Khokar, there are these very Jod ragas, the combination of two ragas, Basant Bahar and Basanti Kedar, Nat Kamod, Nat Bihag, all these are very patent rags of the Jaipur Gharana. So I think this is what I can give in a gist. If you want to know in detail, then we can obviously.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you for
so
your
much.
question. Yeah.
Thank you, Ranjini. We'll move on to the next question from Hem Kusum. I am intrigued whether the ragas have their roots in folk music, or folk music is picked up based on the preference of a particular gharana and then set to ragas.
Kumar Gandharvji believed very strongly that ragas have their origin in folk music, and he in fact also was inspired by many folk tunes in the Malwa region, in Devas, Madhya Pradesh, where he was living, and he created new ragas out of the folk tunes that he heard. So you do find some similarity between certain folk tunes, but the rag in itself, the raga concept developed into a much more formalized and a much more wider sort of system. So I think yes, we can say that some of the original ideas came from some very basic folk tunes. Like for example, Bhupali is an excellent example of rag which has similarities to the music beyond India also. There are a lot of other cultures which use the notes in Bhupali. So yeah, there you can always have a correlation between folk and classical, and but because both these have a very different way of, they've had a different development kind of journey. So I guess rag developed into a more elaborate kind of a system or concept maybe.
Right. Thank you, Ranjini. The next question also is a continuation of what you just said. This is from Partho Protim Roy. Wonderful presentation, Dr. Ranjini. Would you like to respond to a general perception that classical music is basically for a select few? Is this perception right? If so, how can we popularize it to entertain and elevate the listeners?
I do not conform to the view that their forms of music cannot be restricted to this notion of classes and the masses, because then it automatically creates this hierarchy that classical music is something of a novelty, and it's supposed to be appreciated only by few. What I would say is that in order to listen to classical music, you do need to have some kind of a basic understanding. That's one school of thought. But I also strongly believe that it is music. I mean, it is a form of expression. So people who want to listen to this music without knowing any of the intricacies of this form, I think it's okay. And not all the forms need not have the same kind of I mean, by popularity, I think the notion of popularity also changes with reference to forms. Like, so you cannot compare a classical music concert to a rock music concert, because both are performing different sort of what do I say, different functions, and also are creating different experiences. So I think it's perfectly all right if there are just few people listening to classical music. I don't have a problem with that. It's more important to have this notion that it is for everybody. Whoever wants to come and whoever can understand and appreciate, they can come. That's what I think.
Right. Thank you, Ranjani. The last question is basically a rejoinder to what, with my little knowledge of Hindustani and classical vocals, I think this is a rejoinder to more Anunna's response rather than Ranjani, a question to Ranjani. This is from R. Ramachandran, who says both words in Bandish and the text of the song in Carnatic style is what people are able to understand, and this helps them appreciate the music better and deeper. So would you care to respond to this, Ranjani?
No, it's okay.
Right. So there are no more questions, and we are also pushing close to 2 hours. So with the permission of the speaker and the mentor, I can then move on to the words of thanks. Bipashadi, shall I
Yes, yes,
go ahead?
please do.
Right,
Please
right,
do.
right. So this is the formal words of thanks or vote of thanks, however you may take this. First and foremost to our Honorable Upacharya, Professor Vidyut Chakraborty, for introducing this concept, formulating its parameters and guidelines, and encouraging us with active and real-time suggestions and interventions. Sir, we are grateful to you for your keen interest and commitment and help. Thank you once again. Words of thanks extend unilaterally to all members of all tiers and ranks of the university administration. Without their help, this would not have been possible. Thank you all. You know who you are. A special thank goes to Dr. Tanmoy Nag, Deputy Registrar and Confidential Secretary to the Vice Chancellor Vishwabharati, for his diligent inputs and tireless interest. Thank you, Tanmoy. A heartfelt note of thanks goes to all members of Gonitra Sadhan Vishwabharati for their technical expertise and guidance. Special mention must be made here to Dr. Shanto Shankar Dasgupta, Senior System Analyst and in charge, Vishwabharati Computer Center, for his presence and expertise. We are also grateful to our young colleague Rajnandan Kumar, who was at the Vice Chancellor Secretariat for assistance during the Honorable Upacharya's speech and inaugural address. Thank you, Shantoda and Rajnandan. We are grateful to Dr. Arpan Mukherjee, Kala Bhavan, Department of Graphic Arts, Kala Bhavan, and fellow committee member, for designing the absolutely brilliant logo and flyers for today's event, and also for putting up with all of our whims and fancies and midnight revisions. Thank you, Arpan. A big shout out goes out to Dr. Kaushik Ghosh, Assistant Librarian, Central Library, Vishwabharati, our in-house specialist in internet and interactive connectivity, and our resident meet master, for having hosted innumerable meetings and keeping tabs and scores of suggestions and various lists. Thank you so much for everything, Kaushik. We are immensely grateful to Dr. Ranjani Ramachandran of the Department of Hindustani Classical Music, Sangeet Bhavan, for our presentation and our immediate acceptance as the first speaker of Dialogic. Thank you, Ranjani. We are grateful to all our members of the committee as fixed by the Honorable Upacharya to look into this series. Thank you for your valuable time and suggestions. We hope to continue with the high ideals and standards set forward in today's presentation. A big thank you to all, with a slight reminder that our work has just begun. Our final thank you goes to Professor Bipasha Raha, Department of History, Vishwabharati, and the mentor of the committee to look into the series of lectures. Thank you, Bipasha-di, for your astute and delicate handling of the various matters of the series, and for suffering us members without losing your sanity. Thank you, Bipasha ji. And lastly, beyond the final but not the least, a profound vote of thanks, words of thanks to all our participants for being with us on this occasion and giving us the necessary encouragement and support to carry on this venture. Our next presentation will be by Dr. Shomik Nondi Mojumdar of the Department of History of Art, Kala Bhavan. Date and time will be communicated through the regular channels. Meeting will be held on the Zoom platform. With these words, we finally bring our first edition of Dialogic Vishwabharati Young Scholars Lecture Series to a close. Thank you and stay safe. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Kaushik, as host, would you like to close this program?
Okay,
Then we can move on.
Rajnandan, please. Rajnandan, please.
Rajnandan is the meet master today. Thank you, everyone, for being with us.
Thank you.
You, Shudip.